Coming up on BCN today, a record-breaking number of Canadians vote at advance polls. And with 6 days to go, more promises and arguments amongst the federal candidates. And a weekend snowstorm knocks out power to tens of thousands of people across Manitoba.
Your Canada. Your southern Alberta. Your stories. From our studios in the heart of Lethbridge, it's BCN Today with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. The Crown has appealed a judge's decision in the Stephan case. Last month, Justice Terry Claxton found David and Colette Stephan not guilty of failing to provide the necessaries of life for their 18-month-old son, Ezekiel, who died in 2012 from bacterial meningitis. The Crown has appealed this verdict on the grounds that the judge erred by saying the Crown had to prove that the Stephans taking Ezekiel to a doctor would have saved his life, that the judge erred in law by establishing a medical standard unknown to law, that judges' comments towards a Nigerian doctor could be deemed as racist or biased, and that the judge took into account irrelevant considerations. The appeal now sits before the Court of Appeals of Alberta. If you didn't get the chance to vote in the advance polls, you'll have to wait until Election Day, October 21st. Advance polls were open for 4 days across the country from last Friday through last night, and it was a record turnout with a 25% increase of advance voters over the 2015 election. And we're told those results don't include university campuses, local offices, or those who cast their vote by special ballot. If you haven't already, you can find the address of your assigned polling station on the back of your voter information card, or by visiting elections.ca, or by calling 1-800-463-6868. And by the way, you can join us for our live federal election coverage on October 21st at 7 p.m. We'll profile the federal and local candidates and have live results for you as they come in. Don't miss Your Vote 2019, October 21st at 7 p.m. right here on Bridge City News. As the federal election campaign enters the home stretch, the party leaders are spread out across the country today. With just 6 days left to go, Justin Trudeau got things off to an early start with a morning event in Fredericton. He's pushing Liberal plans to improve health care as he spends the day in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, where he hopes to hold the Liberal seats that were won in 2015. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer is spending the day in Quebec. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh is focusing on Toronto today, while the Greens' Elizabeth May is in Kamloops, BC. Andrew Scheer, meanwhile, warned against what he called a tax and spend Liberal NDP coalition government and urged Canadians to hand the Conservatives a majority on October 21st.
I do not believe that Canadians want a Trudeau NDP coalition, a government where Justin Trudeau may be the spokesperson, but the NDP are calling the shots, because that will mean massive new taxes. It will mean endless deficits, threatening those important social programs, because more and more of your tax dollar will have to go just to pay the interest on the debt, on the new debt that they would be racking up, making life even more expensive. The choice could not be more clear now. And there is only one poll that I pay attention to, and that is the one on Election Day. And I believe that given the choice between a Conservative government, a Conservative majority government that will get back to balanced budgets, leave more money in the pockets of Canadians by cutting taxes, and an NDP Liberal coalition that will run massive deficits, lead to massive new increases in taxes, I am very confident that the Canadians will give us a mandate.
The Conservative leader's pitch came a day after NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said he would be open to formally working with a Liberal minority government. Singh spent Thanksgiving on Vancouver's Granville Island, where he pushed back against what Scheer says a potential Liberal NDP coalition government might look like.
With Conservatives, what you get are folks that are going to offer you a couple of dollars in your pocket, but what they're really going to do is they're going to cost you a lot more in the long run. We've seen that in provinces. We can look to Alberta, we can look to Ontario. When Conservatives offer tax cuts, what they really do is they cut the taxes for the wealthiest, the richest Canadians, and then they cut the services that families need, and it costs them a lot more. That's not what Canadians need right now. They need investments in housing and in healthcare. They need somebody who's going to take on the big cell phone companies and make sure that cell phone and internet prices are more affordable. That's what you get when you vote New Democrat. We're in it for you. We're going to make your life better.
Neither Singh nor Trudeau spoke of a potential alliance on Monday, however, instead argued over a new North American Free Trade Pact still awaiting ratification.
We secured a good trade deal with our most important trading partner at a time of American protectionism and uncertainty. And all the while, Andrew Scheer was saying that we had to cave. We had to just get any deal at any cost because NAFTA was too important and because that's what Stephen Harper told him to say. And the NDP? The NDP have said that they want to tear up the current NAFTA deal and renegotiate it with Donald Trump. That's not standing up for workers.
We're not calling for it to be torn up. That's a lie that Mr. Trudeau said. What we are calling for is this. The current protections that are in place are not enforceable. And that means our Canadian workers are not being protected. Democrats in the States acknowledge that the agreement did not include enforcement of those protections. The environmental and labor or employee protections were not enforceable. So they were working on making it stronger. And I'm saying to Canadians, if you vote New Democrats, we're going to work with those in the States, the Democrats in the States, to make sure that this agreement does create a level playing field for Canadian workers so that they can compete across the world. The Democrats are doing it right now. They have a majority in Congress, and they're actually fighting to make sure that the deal has protections in place that are enforceable. Mr. Trudeau wrongly is rushing ahead to ratify something when in the States, Congress is actually working to make it stronger.
Winnipeg says it could take weeks to clean up the thousands of trees that were toppled during a weekend snowstorm that knocked out power to tens of thousands of people across the province. More than 14,000 people are still in the dark, but Manitoba Hydro crews have been working through the night to restore electricity to customers. However, the utility says it could take more than a week to repair the damage caused by the storm. Residents of a Halifax condo building who were forced from their homes when a crane toppled onto a neighborhood building during post-tropical storm Dorian are now able to return home. Some of the residential and business units have been evacuated to allow crews to remove sections of the crane that collapsed onto a building under construction on September 7th. Portions of the crane that were hanging off the building have been removed, and heavy lift cranes will be repositioned over the next few days to prepare for cutting up and removing the main tower. That work is scheduled to begin on Saturday. The interim police chief says the Fort Worth, Texas officer who shot a 28-year-old black woman inside her home over the weekend resigned before he could be fired.
The officer who shot at Tatiana was served his written administrative complaint on Sunday. At that time, he was also placed on detached duty and stripped of his badge and firearm. My intent was to meet with him today to terminate his employment with the Fort Worth Police Department. However, the officer tendered his resignation this morning before we met. Now that the officer has resigned, he no longer has the protections of state civil service law. Therefore, I can now release his name. Aaron Dean, ID 4598, was the officer who responded to the call and fired the shot that killed Tatiana. Despite his resignation, the officer still faces criminal charges from the major case investigation. I've personally checked on the progress of that case repeatedly, and I anticipate a substantial update to provide you no later than tomorrow. Additionally, we have also presented a preliminary case to the FBI to review the officer's actions for possible civil rights violations.
Aaron Dean is now out of jail after posting bond 4 hours after his arrest. Dean resigned from the police force yesterday and was later charged with murder and the death of Atiana Jefferson. Police body cam video shows the officer firing through the glass a split second after shouting at Jefferson to show her hands. Fort Worth's interim police chief says there's no sign the officers identified themselves as police or even knocked before the shooting when they were called to check in after a neighbor noticed the front door was open. Several statues of Christopher Columbus, including one in San Francisco, were vandalized with red paint during Monday's Columbus Day holiday, named for the explorer.
This is a despicable piece of behavior. These are events that happened 500 years ago. The cops are going to see what they can find off of those videos, and if somebody can be apprehended and charged, they will be.
The former head of Britain's Thomas Cook Travel Agency says he's deeply sorry for last month's collapse of the 178-year-old company, but he doesn't think he bears sole responsibility. When asked by members of the parliamentary committee if he's sorry enough to return his bonus of more than £500,000 so it could be used for other purposes like severance pay, Peter Fankhausen responded that he's not willing to decide that immediately. The firm had roughly 21,000 employees, and the collapse left hundreds of thousands of travelers stranded around the world. Well, it's mainly sunny today with some fog patches this morning, wind gusting to 40 kilometers near noon. But the good news, lots of double-digit temperatures for the rest of the week. Complete weather details are coming up after the break. Welcome back. Here's a look at your weather highlights for Lethbridge. Today, mainly sunshine in the forecast there with a high of 12 degrees, a low of plus 6 degrees. Tomorrow, mainly sunny with some cloudy periods there, but look at that, high of 18 degrees tomorrow with a low of 5. Not a bad looking day at all. Coming up for the next 5 days, Thursday, we got mainly clouds and sun, a little bit of both there, high of 13 degrees. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for Friday, though, 11 degrees. Sun and cloud mixture over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, with highs of 10 and 11. A high of 13 on Monday, with also a mix of sun and cloud. Not too bad looking there for the 5-day forecast. The average high this time of year, 15 degrees, average low, 1 degree. The highest temperature on this day was 1961. Look at that, 27 degrees. The low was minus 13. That was back in 2001. The sun rose this morning at 7:52 a.m. It will be setting this evening at 6:42 p.m. Those mornings staying a little bit darker. If you drive to work early like I do, you'll notice how dark it is when we come into work in the mornings. Looking at the national forecast over in BC, Victoria and Vancouver, we've got chance of showers for both of those cities with highs of 14 and 13. High of 7 up in Edmonton with a mix of sun and cloud. Mix of sun and cloud in Calgary as well with a high of 10 degrees there. Over in the prairie, Saskatoon, we got a high of 5 degrees, a mix of sun and cloud. Mainly raining though in Regina, high of 3 degrees. Winnipeg, also a different story there. We got the snowstorm that's turning to rain, high of 3 degrees. Lots of bad news happening over in Manitoba. But over in the east, sunshine, sunshine, sunshine everywhere. Highs of 13 degrees all across Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal today. So pretty nice weather happening over there. Over in the Maritimes though, Fredericton, we've got chance of showers there with high of 14 degrees. We got rainy skies also up in Charlottetown with a high of 15. Rain forecasted for Halifax as well, but a high of 19 degrees, so that's pretty nice. High of 9 degrees up in St. John's, Newfoundland. Mainly cloudy skies over there. That's a look at your forecast. Here's what's happening in your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. The United Way Coats for Kids and Families campaign continues until October 31st, accepting new and gently used winter wear for families in need in the community. Accepted items include new or gently used coats, mittens, scarves, snow pants, snow boots, and new hats and toques. Items can be dropped off at United Way and any Lethbridge TD Canada Trust or ATB financial branch. For more information, call 403-327-1700. Come out and support a worthy cause. The Blue Rain Ranch Animal Assisted Therapy Foundation Benefit Dinner and Auction is taking place on Saturday, October 19th at the Community Hall in Fort Macleod, with cocktails being served at 5:30 p.m. and dinner beginning at 6. Come dressed in your best Western wear and enjoy live music by Duo Grand Fiddle and Guitar. All proceeds to support access for low-income trauma and abuse victims to counseling and animal-assisted therapy. For tickets, call 403-894-9160, and for event details, visit bridgesofhope.com. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is searching for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit anywhere from 1 hour a week to 1 full year. They have many kids on their wait list that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. For more information, call 403-328-9355 or email info.leth@bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Well, today's daily life hack will provide some good news for those of us who indulged on turkey over the weekend. That includes myself, of course. Did you know that overindulging on turkey will actually help boost your metabolism? That's good news for all of us that love our Thanksgiving dinner. But there's a list of other foods that also will do the same, including, are you ready for this? Avocado, beans, spinach, water, soy milk, apples, cinnamon. I feel like I'm reading off a grocery list here. Almonds, coffee, broccoli, green tea, oatmeal, grapefruit, and yogurt. Looks like Thanksgiving may have paid off for some of us, and that's your daily life hack. We all know that cheese begins with milk, but how does it get from the cow to our grocery store? There's a family who makes cheese locally. I visited their farm and they showed me the whole process of how they make their many cheeses and yogurts before going to market. Say cheese. For the Buyer family, it's all in a day's work at Crystal Springs Cheese, located just outside of Lethbridge. The local Alberta family-run business is currently one of Western Canada's leaders in feta production.
Yes, we make feta is our main one. We do Goudas, we do Havardis, we do cheddars. Those are all pretty much just farmers market items. We have a farm right next door. We have just over 100 cows. It gets pumped over through a line going from the barn to the cheese plant. It's only about like 400 feet away. So it literally gets pumped into our tanks over here. We pasteurize the milk and it goes into the cheese vats and yogurt vats. The biggest launch we've had in the last, actually March 1st, we took over a brand called Bleswald Yogurt. So it's very exciting. So the yogurt is actually it's a completely natural yogurt. So very different than your typical yogurts. We're actually taking, our plain yogurt only has 3 ingredients. It's milk, skim milk powders, and cultures. So that's one of the only yogurts that's on the market that has so few ingredients.
It's a long process for some of the cheeses. Gouda takes months, whereas the curds take a day. From there, they get bagged and vacuum sealed, then sent to the stores and into your cart. For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Rocher. Well, buying a home or new vehicle usually requires a key component, credit. Poor or no credit history can end up costing you tens of thousands in high interest payments. Video journalist Naveen Day investigates some common myths when it comes to your credit rating.
Credit is a key component in the purchases we make where cash on hand just isn't enough. Getting started on a credit history or rebuilding credit after a negative life event is seldom sought after by many people. So I reached out to a financial educator for some credit building tips.
Many young people think that the best thing they can do to build credit is to take their credit card and max it right to the top of the limit. That's not very good for your credit at all. It's best to keep your credit at a manageable rate that you can repay every month and to utilize that credit product at less than 50% of its limit. When you've completed legal action to address your debt, a consumer proposal, or a bankruptcy, it can be hard to get major lending for a period of time. A good trustee, however, will walk you through the steps to start rebuilding your credit, often with a small secured credit card, maybe an RRSP loan.
Aside from credit history, what else are creditors looking for? What are some common misconceptions about what goes on your credit file? I spoke with a representative from Equifax, a credit reporting agency, to learn more.
One of the very common misconceptions is that there are scores on credit reports. In fact, scores are calculated based on the data in a credit report when they're needed. So a score is not actually one of the items that is maintained on a credit report or credit file. What happens is when you apply for credit, such as a credit card or a car loan or a mortgage, that is recorded on your credit file in the form of an inquiry. Those hard inquiries can be taken into account when an individual's score is calculated. So the next time you go to apply for credit, that new hard inquiry from the previous time you applied for credit may have an impact on your overall score.
Your income, wealth, and holdings that you may have are also important, as this assures the lender that there is sufficient cash flow to cover the payments. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. Parents in Scotland face criminal charges for spanking their children after controversial legislation on a ban was backed by Scottish politicians. Despite public opposition and warnings of widespread investigations into families, members of the Scottish Parliament voted 84 to 29 in favor of the ban. The bill is scheduled to come into force in the coming months. The campaign group Be Reasonable, which is backed by the Christian Institute, expressed disappointment at the result.
It's incredibly disappointing that Scottish politicians have voted to criminalise parents who smack their kids. It's just another example of politicians being completely out of touch with the beliefs and the concerns of ordinary people. We know poll after poll in Scotland has shown a majority against the ban, and we also know that experts have told politicians that the ban is a bad idea, and they've all been ignored. And I'm afraid it's ordinary people who are going to pay the price for this. So the Be Reasonable campaign is going to continue, and we're going to be monitoring this every step of the way and standing up for ordinary parents.
A couple of great movies are playing at the Mill this week. Here's Len Binning with our Movie Mill Minute.
Another action film, Angel Has Fallen. There's been an attempt on the president's life, played by Morgan Freeman, and his closest confidant, Secret Serviceman Mike Banning, played by Gerard Butler, is the prime suspect.
The president's not safe. They're going to try and finish the job. And I'm not going to stop until I prove who did this. I love you.
How did you find me?
I want security for the president. How do you think, Dad? I need your help.
Former enemies, Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, must team up against Idris Elba, who's got a biochemical that threatens the world.
This job requires stealth.
Look at you. I'm trying to save the world, which, for the record, will be my 4th time.
Coming up on the second half of our show, some local candidates stop by our studios to tell us about what's on their agendas and what you should know as a voter. That's next, so stick around.